So let's start. You know, Symfony is really two things when the word means components. We have several components, and each component tries to solve some topic. And then we also have the frameworks, so that's the Symfony Standard Edition, and this is many and maybe all the frameworks plugged together. Today I'm going to talk about the components, which is the core thing we're working on with the core team and with all of you when talking about Symfony. Practically, this is a single Git repository with several subfolders, one subfolder per component, per bundles, or per bridge. This is the three kind of subfolders we have. And these are split automatically in sub-tree splits, which are new Git repository automatically generated from the main one, the single big Git repository. This helps us, for example, do pull requests that spans across several components at once, test all components together, one component with another component, and cross-check everything so that we can ensure that all these components share the same quality level. They share quality level. In fact, all these components share processes. And this is really what Symfony is about, process. This is code, of course, but code moves. Processes make them move. And this is, the first process is the release cycle. So the release cycle is in Symfony based on the time, just on time. So every 6 months, we release a new version. And we ship what's ready at that time, nothing else. So I can't tell you what will be Symfony 3.1, the next that we're going to release in 6 months. I can give you the date. I can give you the date now because you know Fabian announced it of Symfony 4, which means I'm able also to give you the date of Symfony 5, 7, etc. And we have short-term standard release. These are 8 months of bug fixes. These have 8 months of bug fixes and 14 of security supports. And we have long-term support versions. So 2.8 is the long-term support version. And it's the last one, just fresh, hot. These are 36 months for bug fixes. And maybe you have your application, production application, based on 2.3, because that was the oldest, and that is the oldest long-term support version we still support. And maybe you're in the process of moving to 2.7 or 2.8, next long-term support version and the current ones. Releasing and backward compatibility promise. This is also a document Fabian told you about. And this is really a keystone of the success of having Symfony be 10 years old today. What this says is that if you have a 2.3 application today, and if you move your composite.json requirements to 2.7 or 2.8, your application should continue to work. That's the promise. And this is really something we improved and we know how to do now because Bernard wrote this backward compatibility document where we can know if doing this or this is allowed when reviewing a pull request. So, backward compatibility promise tells us that, for example, when a public method, a public interface is published, released, we can't touch it anymore. It's done. This is the kind of things that are implicitly written in the Semantic Versioning document, which is not a PHP world document, it's just a computer software world document, where some people wrote very interesting things that allows us to have some standard way of understanding this kind of numbers. So this is version 2.8.0, the current one, and this is the major number, major version number, minor one, and the patch level number. And the Semantic Versioning document says that we have to increment the major number when doing API incompatible changes, which means that we followed Semantic Versioning way moving from Symfony 1 to Symfony 2 because we broke compatibility. Of course, we removed everything and we put something new in place. We also have this minor number, and this one changes whenever we add a new feature in the code base or whenever we deprecate a feature in a backward compatible way. That's the requirement. And then we have the bug fix level, the patch level, which is, of course, for bug fixes and security fixes, and they must keep backward compatibility. For security, it's not always the case because security is a highly, we have to do some things. Sometimes we make mistakes. So what's new in Symfony 3? Nothing, really. Nothing, because changing the major number doesn't give new feature. It's only for removing things. That's how we understand this semantic version thing in Symfony and between Symfony 2 and Symfony 3. That's how we decided to interpret semantic versioning. So what is Symfony 3? Symfony 3 is not a long-term support version. Fabian told you about that. It's based on the 2.8 code base, and we just took it and removed all the deprecated code. That's what Symfony 3 is. And so the requirement for PHP is now 5.5. And this is new in the history of Symfony. Changing the major number, version number, doesn't require you to rewrite everything. It's backward compatible as much as possible. This is some picture Javier created to illustrate this code removal process. So this is some number saying that about 10% of the lines of code, for example, have been removed. So that's a lot. So we lost many files. We removed many files. We removed so many things that were just legacy. So what's new in Symfony 3? Nothing, but all new features are in 2.8. I'm sure you want to have some excerpts, and so I can know about new features in 2.8. So let's go. What's new in 2.8? OK. This is the changelog since Symfony 2.3. So if you want to read it, it's available in the changelog, in the Git history. Just grab for features. There are 500 lines of features. All of them are, some of them are minor, major, but not all of you will consider what I may consider minor as major and the opposite. So here's a short list, really a random short list, because it may be not what you expect and what you will decide to put in the short list, but these are some new features from 2.7. So we have a new demo installer, and that's really welcome for newcomers. And you know that Symfony is not only for advanced developers, and we really want the community to have newcomers with fresh blood to have, some active community. We have LDAP support in the authentication system. We have the Symfony Core, you know about it now. We have a new Symfony CLI style. We have a new web profiler with a new design, more compact. We have micro-kernel support, which is for the hype. Technically, we can't talk about it, but really it makes the hype. We have auto-warring in the service containers so that you can more easily plug things together and with less declaration, configuration, have everything work with just type hints. We moved aesthetic out of the default bundle edition so that you can choose anything else, because really there are several tools to solve this kind of asset management issue. We have tools for dealing with deprecations, and that's the point today I'm going to develop. We have new usage. So read-only file system, Symfony on read-only file system containers, which required some changes in the cache warming thing, for example. We tried to enhance the developer experience. One example, the buffering logger, is a new system that is able to catch any deprecation or really any message, log message that is triggered before monologue is ready. Because you start PHP, monologue is not here, we boot the kernel, but at some point have monologue ready, so the logger, and in between, there's nothing. There were nothing. And in 2.7, you can miss some messages. So this is just putting the message in some array, and when the logger is ready, it flushes everything to the real logger. We decoupled many things. So, for example, the security ACL component is now standalone, and now it's out of the Git repository, and there's some other code decoupling in the code base so that you can use more granularly everything. Standards. The YAML parser allowed many non-YAML syntax, and this is removed because we want YAML to be not Symfony YAML, but really YAML standard, so that you can parse the same YAML file in Python or in Go or in Ruby or anything. Performance. This example is around Twig and templating. So you may have noticed that now you can use Twig without the templating component. We did that because so many of us are using Twig to do templating with Symfony applications that the templating component, which is this code doing this abstraction between any templating component, is really useless in most of the cases. So you can use Twig. The asset component is now separated, so you have the asset components since 2.7, and you don't need the templating component to use them. And we removed, in 2.8 at least, we deprecated so-called mistakes. So Fabian told you about the scopes and the synchronized flag on services. And the CLI shell is something really hard to do. It should not be part of Symfony core. Finder adapters, which is something that allows you to find with a finder using PHP iterator, or the find command wrapping something around. And this is just too complex to handle and not required. So now we have just the PHP iterators and finder built on top of that. Deep request items, profiler storage. We store profiles only on the file system now. We don't care about putting them in the database. It's just developer tool. There's no need to have some complex abstraction and blah, blah, blah. And then the last item I put on my list is quality. And this is something that is also part of the next slides. So really, for example, we used to have some transient tests, so tests that sometimes fail, sometimes success. And you don't know why, you don't know when, because they depend on some sleep, and sleep is not, the container, the test container could be doing something else, so the time is really something that is difficult to handle in tests. So we mock the clock now. We also tweaked the test matrix so that it's even harder to break things in pull request or new code changes. So what's new in Symfony 3? The continuous upgrade path. And that's the promise, telling we want you as a core team, we want you to be able to migrate from Symfony 2 to Symfony 3 easily as possible. And to do that, we want you to have some continuous upgrade path so that we can tell you, you can read about it, and you can know that by doing the right step by step, you can get closer to Symfony 3 until the point where migrating to Symfony 3 is just as easy as changing the composer JSON requirements. That's what we're trying to do, and what we tried to do in the last month. So before, we had this process to help you migrate from 2.3 to 2.7 and expecting that would be enough for the next versions. So it means semantic versioning, so you know about it. The backward compatibility promise. We reported, and we still report new features in the changelog files. All deprecation are reported in the upgrade with some before, after, new way, please change your code, this and that. And we add deprecated annotation in the code base, so on every class, every method. And of course, the official documentation is updated thanks to the Symfony doc project. This is only read the manual tools. And it doesn't work very well because nobody reads the documentation until it's too late, if you think about it. So what we decided to change in 2.7 is to trigger deprecation notices at runtimes. So it means in 2.7, and that was exactly 1 year ago, we opened the code base and we've looked for deprecated code path, something saying if I'm still using this deprecated thing, then do the deprecated way. Now we trigger some message, some trigger error message, user deprecated. and we added them everywhere in the code because we wanted at that time to show them and to log them so that you can know about them. So this was really the start of 1 year of nightmare. So this is, for example, pull request from Hugo. So that's 184 files changed at once. And that's not the only pull request on the topic. That's only one of them. So it's really crippling the code base and upgrading the code base to this new practice, and really hard. And in fact, so hard that we broke Symfony. So that's Ryan asking for reverting this because we hurt everyone and it was so difficult. It was broken, in fact. Symfony was broken, and we saw it at that time. So we had to start a long journey in this deprecation thing, and one tool around on this path is the PHPUnit bridge. So this is a way to get aggregated deprecation messages at the end of the test suite. So at first, when we added the deprecation with this, we had 150,000 lines of deprecation logs after the PHPUnit test suite. So that's not manageable. So we added some aggregator and with a nice summary reporter so that we could know where to start and fix them one by one. So that's what we did. One example, so set default options is deprecated. Now you have to use configure option. And we upgraded Symfony to Symfony for several weeks and several months. So now, after this pull request, or this kind of pull request, we had Symfony upgraded to Symfony, but not everything is a code path, which means triggering deprecation won't show you everything. When you use a constant, we can't tell you at runtime, hey, wait, you're using this constant. We can't plug into this kind of, it's not an event, this kind of things into Symfony, into PHP. So another example is when some Symfony class is implementing some deprecated interface. In this case, we can't remove the implement deprecated interface because that would be a backward compatibility break. So if you are using this interface, then you should know about it. So this screenshot is about the debug component that has a debug class loader, which is something that wraps automatically around any class loader you have, really. And it checks every class you load and says, OK, this one is using some abstract deprecated thing or some deprecated interface. So you can know about it again. Another step is adding the deprecation concept as a feature into, for example, the container. Because really, it's a new feature, having tools to deal with them. And now, on a definition, on a service definition, you can tell the container that it's deprecated. And the container knows about it and knows what to do about that. So one example where we need this feature is the request service. So you know that the request service is deprecated. And of course, the request class is not deprecated, so we can add deprecation in the class itself. And now, when you use the container, we added in the request service definition message and a tag saying this service is deprecated, so that whenever you use it, you get a notice now. It's also useful for cases where the class itself is deprecated, so the CServe provider adapter is deprecated. And before this feature, the deprecation notices were saying you're using this class, and this class is deprecated. But when you're not using this class directly, but as a service, it's really difficult to know why you get this message. So now you have a message with this feature that tells you you're using the form CServe provider service, and this one is gone. You should use something else. And so now we have annotations everywhere, trigger errors everywhere, so we can build tools because we have a standard, something that is shared among the community. And this is 3 initiatives that are on this path. So One is the Sensor Labs deprecation detector. It's an open source tool that is a static analyzer dedicated to triggering deprecation, showing you where in your code base you have deprecated methods, constant, anything. There's also the Symfony upgrade fixer, and this one is trying to help you patch your code quickly, so there's some legacy way of doing things, new way, and it knows some of them, and it is able for some of them to just rewrite your code for you, so that you can generate and migrate with the tool more easily, because some things are really boring, and a tool is better for that. And last thing, there are more, and there will be more, I'm sure. So Ryan is doing a great job at just documenting the process, and so that you can follow the tutorials. Okay, so now we did that once for Symfony, and we want to keep this best practice recreated while working on 2.7, then 2.8, and 3. So what the sustainability of this continuous upgrade path promise? First, we had to try it by ourselves on each component and on a component by component basis. Because, you know, Symfony component working with Symfony component should be the same as Symfony component working with foreign library or foreign bundle or your app, really. So we tried that with Symfony components, and we added in the test suite 2 lines. One line saying, I want to check out the 2.8 components, each of them, and Composer update all of them in their own subdirectory, and load the dependencies with 3 versions, the 3 versions of their dependencies, and verify that it works. And in fact, for many components, it just works, because we are not using the deprecated things that are removed in 3. For some components, we just broke compatibility, as you know. So some components in the 2.8 version are not compatible with the 3 versions of the dependencies because something is missing. And then we tried to do this reverse thing. So checking out one component in the 3 version and trying to verify, ensure with the test suite that it worked with the 2.8 version of some dependency. So doing so forced us to do a patch on Composer, so that now Composer is able to load your dependencies and all the dependencies stated in the old JSON files as lowest version, because you know when you do Composer update, usually you get the highest version of all the components, all your dependencies. And with this prefer lowest flag, you can tell Composer, okay, now I want the lowest load one in the JSON file. So this is how we did. We took all the Symfony 3 components, and we added a low 2.8 in the Composer JSON file, and Composer update prefer lowest. And that gave us what we wanted to verify in the test suite. As a side effect, you are now able to ensure that your lowest dependencies are true. And that's a nice side effect. Okay, so then in the process, we figured out that checking a 2.8 component and verifying that some 3 dependencies work can't be done for all the test suite, because some tests in the 2.8 components use legacy interfaces on purpose, because we still test deprecated interfaces, of course. So we had to annotate each test and say, okay, this test is using, is testing, in fact, a legacy method, and this test, and this part of the test suite, is just testing the new way. So that when we are running the 2.8 test suite with 3 dependencies, we don't run the legacy test suite, because we are sure it won't work with the 3 components, 3 dependencies, since the code are removed there. We added this in the matrix. So this is the Travis matrix, and this slide is about this topic. So the last 2 lines, the depths equal high and depths equal low. High means one way and low the other way. And of course, that's on the quality ++ topic. We have now HHVM 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, and 7, and all of them are green. That's a requirement. We also have Windows testing. So Appveyor is a Travis-like system for Windows, for Windows. And this is a screenshot. And so this gave us Windows quality and Windows fixes, of course, because we found bugs, because not running the test suite on Windows means it's broken by definition, and in practice also. And it allowed us to also do something that is not that easy in Linux and more easy in Windows, which is DLLs, because you can run very easily PHP without any DLL, which means without any extension. And this is how we check now that Symfony still works without any extension loaded, and that was not the case. Then we have a second line in the Appveyor matrix, which loads all the extension, optional ones, MB string, ENTL, so that we can be sure that all of them works as expected in Windows. So the sustainability of the continuous upgrade path promise is based on the first item, which is pushing the burden on deprecation authors. And that was the mistake we did not do. We did before. Before, people used to come with a pull request saying, I want to deprecate this method, this is the new way, and they didn't upgrade the code path or the code base. So Symfony was still using the legacy way that the author proposed, and some pull requests came with some updates, but some were missed. So by triggering deprecation notices in the test suite and making the test suite fail in case any deprecation is still triggered, we push the burden on the deprecation author, and we won't have this hard winter like this year doing the job for the full code base at once. And of course, we have human code review, and this is the best thing we can do. Okay, so now we did something for Symfony. So Symfony is just the core of an ecosystem, and the ecosystem needs tools and needs to follow this process. So we provided and we ship now the PHPUnit Bridge, which is this summary, deprecation summary report at the end of the test suite. This is an example in the screenshot of what it does. So you run PHPUnit after having added this PHPUnit Bridge in the requirements of your composer dependencies, and you get this after the awk or failure report from PHPUnit. So remaining deprecation notices, some number, and then they are grouped by message, and you have the detail of which test method triggered them and how many times. So when you see this kind of thing, you can know how to start and where to start. So let's go. Then the second thing we had to do, and we still have to do this ecosystem, is allowing Symfony 3 in the composer JSON files, because all of them are or were using till 2.something requirement in the composer JSON file, which means that it's 3 excluded. And so we did several pull requests to start the process to allow in the composer JSON files the 3 version. And in many cases, it just works, because, for example, when you're requiring the Symfony console component, this has just a few backward incompatible changes, which means that in most of the cases, it just drop in, replace, and it works. In some other cases, some components need some method exist check in the code to just adapt automatically to 3 versus 3 to work with all Symfony versions. One example is, not one example, something else. Something else is that we know how to deprecate things now. We learned it hardly, we know about that. So now Twig, for example, can deprecate, follow the same path, the same process, and Twig 2 is shaping, and Twig 2 has some code to be removed. So in Twig 1, Fabian added deprecation notices, runtime deprecation notices. And this is really the only thing you need to do to deprecate your code now. You just add trigger error, the message, and the right constant, user deprecated. The at is not the annotation symbol, it's the silencing PHP operator that triggers, that makes this deprecation silent by default. And we want to do that, and we learned that late in the process in April, I think, after adding them. So someone proposed a pull request adding the at symbol everywhere. And in fact, it was a really good idea because it makes the deprecation notice process an opt-in one. By default, you don't get any notice, and maybe that's just the right thing because you don't care about upgrading now your app is working, so why? But later, when you want to update, you have, and you know how to do that with the tools I'm just talking about. Okay, so now your turn. Some guidelines. So use the deprecation detector, the upgrade fixer also. They are really good tools to start with screening your full code base. They don't catch anything, all the things. So they will miss some things, and you need to have several approaches. One with this automatic tool, one by using the PHPUnit bridge. So I hope you have a test suite, because without any test suite, moving to 3 is going to be much harder. So then, if you have it, just run PHPUnit with the bridge. Read the manual, really. It's written there, everything is written there. And we should add, and you should submit a pull request if you're missing something, if this file is missing something. Then, of course, don't ignore any deprecation notice you catch. So be careful, be aware that the constants are missed by the test suites, so notices. Be aware of warm-up notices. In Symfony, of course, the first time you boot a Symfony application, the container is built and dumped, and there are deprecation notices in this process, and this happens only once until you clear the cache with no warm-up. So this is an easy way to miss deprecations. At some point you start, you say, okay, I have 10 deprecations, then at some point you reload, and you have 50, and you say, well, how is that possible? That's the reason. There are some hidden changes. Hidden, I mean, not enlightened by any message or how to see. This example is for the .class parameters in the service configuration. So we used to declare service and reference the class implementing the service through parameters. So foobar.class with the concrete class name, and then service foobar class foobar.class. We removed them, but some of you may still use them for specializing and changing the implementation of the service. So this is deprecated, this has been removed in Symfony 3, and the new way is just to create a new declaration, service declaration, definition. Then, once you have one deprecation notice, don't expect it to be the only place in your code base where this is triggered. So if you get one deprecation notice for one particular way of doing things that is deprecated, just use grep, something like that, to screen all your code base and wonder, looking at the code, if you're doing the same somewhere else. Last series of tools, commercial tools. PHP Storm is good at parsing and reading at deprecated annotations. So this is a good way to also upgrade your code base. Sensor Labs Insight is another tool, and I'm sure there will be more. This is a really new trick. An example with the PHPUnit bridge. So you saw the report. So this was just a report on the previous slide. And now you are able to, by using an environment variable, to tell the bridge to kill the test suite just in the middle whenever there is a deprecation that matches some regular expression. So in this example, I have a message, and I want to stop the test suite on any deprecation that contains the word form. So this is the way to get a stack trace, because having the previous lists with all the messages and knowing which test triggered this is not enough to fix the code. So now, by doing this, you prefix your PHPUnit comments with Symfony deprecation helper / something /. You can stop and get the stack trace. And of course, that's the way to fix it. Another screenshot. This one is from the new 2.8 toolbar. And in the toolbar, there is deprecation count. And if you click on it, you see the detailed deprecation messages that were triggered during the rendering of the previous page. And with a stack trace. So just look at them and fix all of them. In some cases, the message will be triggered by some bundle you're requiring in your application. So in this case, you won't be able to do anything in your code, but you will be able, and you are always able to do a pull request. So please do. On the bundle, of course. So, as a conclusion, what's new in Symfony 3? This add trigger error thing is the start of the story, and that's what we learned and how we built everything. So we built a continuous upgrade path for major versions, and that's really an amazing feature of Symfony 3. And to do that, we created a process to remove legacy code. And that's also a great achievement we did all together. Otherwise, at some point, Symfony would be just legacy code, because, you know, it's legacy slows innovations, slows everything, and at some point we can't move because, you know, if you move this, everything is broken. But now we know how to do things properly and continue to move forward. To do that, we have also much stricter quality processes, which is also a main feature of Symfony as a project, quality. And we have 46, the number varies, components at once, leading the ecosystem, which means not all the ecosystem has moved to Symfony 3, but at least these 6 have been moved together. That's the motto. Let's keep innovating, because Symfony 3 is just cutting the legacy so that we can get to the future. Thank you. So if you have any question.
Hi. How do you recommend to upgrade a platform that is written in 2.3 to 3.0?
Doing it step by steps. I mean, I recommend starting by moving to Symfony 2.8, then make it work there, it should, and then fix all deprecation notices one by one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Do you suggest to upgrade to Symfony 3 now or wait some patch versions?
You mean because it's 3.0 or because
Yeah.
you should? So far, we have good feedback on Symfony 3.0, which means it's pretty good. So I think you can start a new project right now on Symfony 3, because 3.01 will be released just in a few weeks, maybe days, I don't know, but really shortly, and with a few fixes, not important. Yeah, there's nothing that is very important in new release. At least today, we didn't notice anything really wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Time is over.